I didn't peak in high school. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Yeah.
But I can't discount the fact that those were amazing years. I was thinking the other day about looking back over the course of my life and thinking through all of the times in my life that I would consider some of the best times of my life. And I was thinking about it in terms of what was going on, how was I feeling emotionally, who was around me, and kind of seeing if I could draw some patterns or pick out some common themes of things that were going on so that I could maybe continue to have those best times of my life moving forward. And I have had many over the years. So I was just thinking maybe we could share some stories about some of the best times of life.
I love this idea, and I'm going to go yet again to my common card of I don't want to be that nerd, but I am, because a couple years ago I did a sort of a Gantt chart of all of the eras of my life and when things changed. So I put on one category education. So middle school, high school, undergrad, graduate school. I put in men that I was dating or not dating. I put in having my children and my children being in school. I put in where I lived when I moved houses or moved cities. So it says this visual representation of my entire life and all of the blocks that were stable times where those big changes didn't happen and all those times where the changes did happen. It would be really interesting to me to go back and look at that from an emotional perspective and see if I can pick out times on that Gantt chart that were actually
Yeah.
really good times.
I've done similar charts over the years. Some of these are charts that I have done in the context of developing a faith life. I mean, it is one of the exercises that you could find in churches to try to help people make the connection that the times that they felt closest to God were the best times, or the times that they felt furthest away from God were the worst times. I've also done one during treatment for alcohol addiction, where we had to do a whole entire life. And what actually at that time was more interesting to me than looking back over my life was looking forward and realizing how much of my future I was going to miss if I kept drinking. That some of the things that happened in my past that I loved, I couldn't have again until I got sober. So I think that's why they do the exercise, because you're like, oh, like I don't want to drink anymore. It was one of a bazillion tools in my toolkit that I used to get sober. So I've done a couple of those in my life, but it's been a while. It's been a good over 10, 12 years, and a lot has happened in my life in the last 10 and 12 years. It would be very interesting to do another chart like that.
So what's your earliest period of time that you remember being just happy, content, enjoying it?
Probably the earliest one would be hanging out with you at grandma and grandpa's house, because we didn't
Completely.
have parents to tell us what to do. Grandma and grandpa were super permissive. They were, and I mean, and generationally we were that way anyway, but they would just be like, okay, go out and play. And we didn't live in their town, so we didn't know anybody, but we'd go running up and down the street trying to find kids. And they would take us to the playground, and Gramps fed us entirely way too many donuts, which mostly I ate. No regrets about that. But I think just having that really concentrated time where there was literally nothing else to do except find something to do with you, that's my earliest, best memory.
We didn't have a relationship much at all with our mother's family, her parents, her sisters and brothers. Our dad's mom and dad, our grandma and grandpa, were the best. Quintessential grandma and grandpa, buy us whatever we looked at, just spoiled us, took us to the pool, and let us play outside just to have so much fun. We would exit the house through the garage, and there was a clothesline, and on that clothesline was a big piece of lint. And every time we would leave the garage or come through the garage, I would drag that lint across the clothesline. I don't know why that makes me so happy, but a lint on a clothesline makes me happy to this day because of those great summers we spent together at Grandma and Grandpa's house playing cards.
Yes, game shows. Okay, so grandma used to ask us after we'd been watching our shows all day, she would say, do you mind if we watch Archie? And I was like, cool, Archie and Jughead, love it. No, but she meant All in the Family Archie. And I
So
could
wait a
not
minute. What
stomach that.
are you saying that she put on game shows for our benefit? Because I thought we were watching them because that's what they wanted to watch.
it was what they wanted to watch, but she would do it if we happened to be watching something cartoon-like.
I don't remember watching cartoons at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I remember our grandma was sick most of the time, like a long-term chronic disease. So I remember her being in the couch and watching TV from morning till evening. That switched from game shows to news. That's my recollection.
Yeah, that was the worst time of the day. Now
Right.
I love it. I can't get enough of news, but back then it was just like I would rather sit and watch the TV screen blank and black, just a black blank screen, than to at the time watch the news. So grandma had fans because their house didn't have air conditioning and they lived in California, um, a little bit inland. So most of the time it was just foggy. And so it would be super cold overnight. And then during the day, it would be like normalish temperatures. But every now and then it would get really, really hot. So she had these fans. She would fan them out like this.
Manual fans, not
Manual fans, like,
fans.
yeah, like little,
Yeah.
and she would blow herself with her fan, blow with her fan. So her favorite one was just ripped to shreds. She used that thing till it was almost dead. So we bought her a new one and then decided that we would bury the old one and give it a funeral service because it was such a huge part of her life. And so we went out into the garage and Gramps had us find a little stone because there was a big field across the street. We got a stone and then he gave us some paint and we painted, like a little tombstone to this little fan. And we dripped paint on the garage floor. And then we went and buried the fan, and Grandma and Gramps both came out, and we had the whole little funeral. Grandma was,
Yes, I have that recollection as
yeah, like
well.
she was making,
But
making
to
believe.
playing up with it, she wasn't upset. She was playing up with us.
She was playing with us, and we knew it, but it
Yeah.
was still, it was an important rite for us, important ritual for us. And so then every single time we ever visited Grandma and Gramps after that, every time I walked past that splotch of paint, it just reminded me of how important that moment was and that they gave us that time and that space to do really quite an unusual childhood ritual. But
It's the kind of thing we did before we had phones and internet. A funeral for a fan.
yeah.
We would fly out for the summer when we were young. I'm probably 6, 7 years old, and then several summers after that. And we would wear nice clothes because Grandma wanted us to travel in nice clothes back then. And we would carry our tennis rackets. But I have zero recollection of ever playing tennis in their town. Do you?
I do not have a recollection of playing tennis.
Why did we
I
bring our
think
tennis rackets?
I think that we thought we might, but I don't really think that either of us really enjoyed playing tennis that much. Well, I don't know. I can't speak for you. I never liked playing tennis. So I sure as shit wasn't going to bring a tennis racket and then use it on my vacation
I'll
time.
take it with us, but then we're putting them away. I loved our tennis coach and I loved the workout. I don't remember the specifics of the workout, but I do remember sitting against the wall with our legs at a 90 degrees, just sitting up against the wall, and it hurt, but I felt so good after.
Oh my God.
Loved that. And the
That's
suicide
that's
run
so,
where you go first line, second line, third line, and I loved this. I loved the workout.
oh no. Every workout since the time I was a baby was what has been torture. Working at just that my body doesn't tolerate that experience very well, even to this day.
You have wanted to be a grandma since you had a baby. Do you think you want to be a grandma because our grandparents were so good?
That's what Grandma and Gramps looks like to me, and it was a great experience. There's just a part of it that I want to experience what that's I love babies and I love my family. And so if my family is going to bring me more babies, I'm all about it.
So after that, the summers with grandma and grandpa, when we were more or less elementary aged, one of my favorite years was my senior year in high school. Not because I was popular and a cheerleader and all that, but you said something earlier, if we could identify those aspects or the characteristics of those best times in our lives, and you mentioned one of those being who is around us. My senior year in high school was amazing. I had a core group of really good friends. I was in the drama club and I was in the show choir and I was doing a lot of stuff with our church, which I'm not involved in anymore. But I was really, really busy with a lot of amazing people, and that was a really, really good year for me.
Did you just read my script? Because that's exactly how my last 2 years of high school were.
No, you were in the
Great
jazz choir, not
friends,
the choir.
drama. I was not in the show choir. You're right. I was in a show choir in college, but I was in jazz choir, did the drama things. I wanted to clarify this. When I say that the last 2 years of high school were some of the best years of my life, it is true. And also, that doesn't mean that I peaked in high school or that I want to go back to that or that I stalled. It simply means that that was an experience that was amazing. It was also fraught with a lot of angst, a lot of teenage angst, because he likes her, but I like him, and all the, oh my God. So much of that. But even that was exhilarating in its own way.
I
All the who's gonna hook up and who's gonna connect. And by hook up back in the 80s, we meant like maybe kiss. That's what made it, was the people around me. And the distinct thing about musical theater people is that they are weird in the best way. And I say we were weird in the best possible way. And we didn't care because we had enough of us in a group that
right.
we could kind of roam the school in packs and not be too badly harassed because there were so many of us. But we were always the ones that had the weird haircuts and wore the odd clothing, and they were doing things that you might consider goth at the time or just over the top extra. We would sing as loud as we could in the quad. We were at a high school in California, and so we didn't have indoor, like several story buildings where all the classes were inside. It was like a series of external buildings in a big square, in a quad. And inside that square was the like hangout area. That's where we ate our lunch. There was no cafeteria. There was just go out in the quad and eat lunch. And if it's raining, you go under the eaves and you eat your
Right.
lunch under the eaves. If we were singing in the quad, man, the entire school was watching because there was no place else to be except in the quad,
In that
and
quad,
loved
there
it.
was a big box, maybe 6 feet by 8 feet, that covered a transformer, but they had created it as a memorial to somebody, and we called it the memorial. I don't even remember who it was a memorial of, but we called it the memorial, and for 4 years, and probably for 20 years after high school, I and probably a lot of my friends thought that that was the guy's coffin in that big box, and it was not.
You
But
did?
that was the art school, I mean, the art, music, dance, those were the that was the home turf of
That was
our
our spot.
beautiful weird kids, the
That
memorial.
was our spot because we could stand on top of it and sing and make all of the other normies feel really, really uncomfortable.
Looking back, I don't think anybody in our high school was normal. They all had everyone had their own characteristic and their own quirkiness. It just was what it was.
And at the same time, The Breakfast Club movie was not that far off because there were definitely those cliques of people, and you could identify them in a heartbeat and you walk into any high school in California in the 80s, and you could identify which ones of those classifications any one person was. Like, oh, that's the jock. They're jocks. They're cheerleaders. So yes, if you would consider that, like the jocks and the cheerleaders and the stoners were all not normal, then yes. But we
Yeah,
all
yeah.
definitely had like a vibe. There was a dirt road in our town that went way the heck out into the middle of nowhere, and it wound you around to just a smattering of houses, a couple, two or three, big houses, and it was sort of backed up to the backside of the golf course. And on that dirt road, there was a place that we called the quarry. It was not an awesome quarry. It didn't have a giant pool where we could swim in, and it wasn't even all that tucked away from anything. But all of the stoners and then all of the people who were partying, it didn't have a place to party, would go out to the quarry. And by the time we got to high school, you and I and our parents had moved into one of the houses at the end of that street. So I literally had to ride my bike past the quarry every single day.
I also rode my bike past that quarry and never saw people.
No, because they had sort of stopped doing it by then. But I thought it was the coolest thing that we were moving to the location where the quarry was. We could
You were
literally walk to the quarry.
you were attracted to the bad boys?
Always. 100% I was. That's
But
that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day.
by the time I got to high school, we were so cliquified and the school was so woke for a 1980s school that we had the yearbook committee and we had the drama committee and we had a smoking committee where all the
Yeah.
kids, the
Oh,
16, 17, 18-year-old kids, 15, who smoked, got together with the faculty and they would meet once a month and they would talk about their smoking area, which was behind the football field, and they would
yeah.
have meeting minutes. I
They
thought
had
that
a
was
picture in the
great.
yearbook
In the yearbook with all the hair and yes. And
with
I
the
thought, how
faculty advisor.
amazing that they were embracing it that way. Not embracing the smoking, but embracing the people. So
Sure.
now I'm sure they aren't able to smoke on campus and certainly not with the faculty.
No, no, no. I'm quite sure about that. And that was still back when high school principals were the really scary ones, and then the vice principal was like the good guy, the good cop to the bad cop.
Mm.
So the vice principal was the one that got buddy buddy with all of the people in the school, so that when shit went down, he would know who was doing what.
I don't remember who our principal or vice principal was. I think I remember the principal because his son was a football player. So I don't know, but I don't remember interacting at all with senior leadership at the school.
No, I didn't interact with them, but I knew who they were, and I would walk a long way around if they were coming this way because I just didn't. I wanted to be under the radar. Don't pay attention to me.
Yes, of
The
course.
higher ups, that except for the teachers. We had some amazing teachers that were life-changing role models for us. So probably the most, I mean, you say it with me, you know who I'm talking about.
Mrs.
Miss
Gates.
G. Yeah, Miss G was the choir director. Y'all, let me tell you what. She didn't just direct the choir. She like raised teenagers. She was the pillar of the entire school community. She knew everybody because she also had kids that were in high school at about the same time that we were in high school. So she knew all the kids, she knew who was who, what people were into, and she took this choir to places most choirs never get to see. So we would take the entire choir from San Francisco area down to Los Angeles for competitions. And I think one of the years just following our graduation, they actually even got to perform at Carnegie Hall because that's how good her choirs were because of her leadership. And everybody respected her.
You
Nobody was going to give her any shit. She
right,
wasn't going to take any shit.
right.
And you just knew it. But she was so kind and so compassionate.
Your jazz choir even got to sing with Rosemary Clooney.
We did. Who is the aunt
Once?
of George Clooney, in case you were wondering, back before anybody knew who George Clooney was.
No, at the time we were saying, oh, that actor, I think he's the nephew of that person who we
The
know.
nephew.
Right.
Because Rosemary Clooney was a big, big
Big deal.
singer. She came to our high school and she sang a concert and we got to back her up. And yes, that was incredible. So I don't even really know how to describe anymore what Ms. G meant to us, but I guarantee you that there are thousands of passwords across our country where the answer to the question is Gates, where the question is, who is your favorite teacher growing up? So, just so you know, y'all can go in and probably just put Gates in there, and you're like a 50-50 chance that you just broke into someone's passwords. So, I think what I take away from this conversation about high school is it had everything to do with the people. It really did. It was having a community of people that were like-minded, that we could talk with each other, and we totally got each other. And I think that that kind of connection is hard to replicate. So after high school, what would be some of the best times of your life?
I went through a lot of years of not best times, and I think the next best time in my life was my years in grad school. So the difficult years were getting through undergrad. It took me a long time to get through undergrad. I had to pay for it myself, and I was working full time and going to school part time, and it just takes a long time that way. And I finally got through it, and then worked for a couple years to save some money, and then I went to grad school, and that was a very, very happy time for me.
What about grad school made it amazing?
The people, the people I was with. I went to UC Berkeley. I got a PhD in neuroscience, and the people just walking around the halls. We had Nobel Prize winners, and we had people who had written the textbooks for these topics that I was studying, and it was just an amazing like privilege to be around these amazing thinkers and visionaries and people who cared about something for the sake of that thing, not for the money it would bring in or the capitalism or the business they could build. They were just curious about the thing they were curious about. And that really shaped a lot of my life is not everything has to be towards something.
And you were one of them.
If I ever felt imposter syndrome in my life to the nth degree, it was studying PhD in neuroscience at UC Berkeley. I really, honestly, not that I thought they were going to kick me out, but I did not feel like I belonged until years later. When I defended my thesis, that was one of the best days of my life. I honestly felt like I was walking 2 feet above the ground. The physical sensation of walking 2 feet above the ground, it was amazing.
One of the best years of my life, hands down, was when I was at seminary and I had a year where I had to move to a whole nother state to do internship. And so we moved from Minnesota to Pennsylvania. We lived in Hershey, Pennsylvania. And yes, that is where the Hershey factory was started. And so we lived in the parsonage, which is basically the little house that the church owns that sits across the alley from the backside of the church. Best year of my life. So I went there to primarily work with youth and the children. And we loved it so much. I had a brand new baby. So Josh was only, I think he was like 6 months old. The youth got to know both me and my husband and our baby. They got to know us so well that when their parents had meetings at the church, they would come with them so that they could run across the street and hang out at our house.
Oh, that's so
And we
sweet.
had an open door policy. So it was a little teeny tiny house, but it had, like a little foyer, a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen. And then upstairs, like 2, 3, 4, like itty bitty little bedrooms. If the door was open, which it always was, they could come in and just not go upstairs because the baby might be sleeping or we might be sleeping. But those kids came and hung out with us. And the parents also, because the parents of those kids were not that much older than we were. So we got to know so many people and they loved us. They loved me. Leaving that internship was one of the most miserable experiences of my entire life. I cried for days because I fell in love with those people so, so, so much. And again, the thing that made it amazing was the people.
You cried when you left, but your parishioners cried when you left. It might have been your baby.
It was probably partly the baby. We had people all the time that would be like, hey, do you guys want to go out for date night? We'd be happy to watch the baby for you.
Oh, he was so sweet.
He was very
He
sweet.
is so sweet.
He is, yeah.
That in particular was a really good time for me as well, even though I was an undergrad, because I fell in love with your baby so hard. So hard. All of your kids, of course, but the first one, people who don't have kids or nieces and nephews, it's hard to understand that feeling of aunthood, of how much you can love this baby that's in your family. It was eye-opening to me with your first.
It's amazing how much deeper love can get, and you don't know it until you experience it.
Right.
And it happens when you fall in love with somebody. It happens when you have children, when you have nieces and nephews. I think it also happens with grandchildren, which is why I'm so eager to have grandbabies. But okay, I will let my kids decide when they want to have their own grandbabies. It's not up to me to tell them when they should bring me babies. But if it should happen, I am totally down for grandbabies.
Did you like being
Yeah.
pregnant?
No. If you are liking the content, please like and subscribe, comment, and invite a friend to listen in. Thank you.
Did you like being
Yeah.
pregnant?
No.
Oh, any of the times? You've been pregnant 3 times.
I loved having that companion with me for 9 months. I did not love any of the physical sensation. Well, except for the quickening and the kicking. Loved that. Loved that. Loved when the babies would kick. Um, Everything else about it sucked really bad. Gaining weight, not being able to move your body. With my first pregnancy, I had, they call it PUPS. It's basically my body had an allergic reaction to being pregnant, and I had a rash from here to my knees, and it itched so bad. And the only cure for it is delivering the baby, and I got it 10 weeks before he was born. So I had this horrible itchy, and so the whole first pregnancy I had to take nightly oatmeal baths just to get that skin less inflamed. And I also got gestational diabetes with that pregnancy, and so physically they were a nightmare, but emotionally that connection that I had with those babies even before they were born, best moments. Yes, best moments of life.
I absolutely adored being pregnant. Love, love, I loved everything about it. Even the sucky parts, I really loved. I never got past 7 months with either of my kids. They were both born premature and they're both fine. But I never got to that awful, difficult 8th month, 9th month waiting every day. With my daughter, I lost sensation, or I had nerve damage in my arms from being pregnant, of all weird things. I think women just go through a lot of stuff that we don't complain about. But I couldn't, it was painful to touch anything for about 6 months after she was born. But that didn't bother me. It didn't bother me. I was just loved everything about being pregnant. I would look at other people and I'd say, oh, if you were pregnant, you'd know how happy life is. I was really like, yeah, no, I'm so lucky to be pregnant right now. I didn't have to worry about sucking in my stomach. No, I could eat whatever the baby told me to eat.
And it felt like walking around with a secret, at least for the first few months.
Yes.
Like I'd walk around through the world and I was like, I don't see people because all I see is me and my baby. And I just felt like this light was shining down on me, like, "Ah, you have a baby in you."
I told everybody that I knew. It wasn't a secret.
No, it wasn't a secret, but in just out in the world
Sure.
when I
Oh,
go
sure.
grocery
Stranger.
shopping.
Yeah.
And I wasn't telling people because I don't know those people, but I was walking around like, "Oh, are you getting peas?" I'm pregnant. My
Well,
news is more exciting.
than peas. Yes. I didn't have the luxury of not telling people and not being out in the world, because with both of my children, I got something called ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, which was a retention of water in my front. So I looked pregnant at maybe 6 weeks. I looked really pregnant. If I objectively looked at my pregnancy, it was really hard and damaging to my body. But I look back on it, I just loved it. Loved it.
Because the people.
Yes, because I got my daughter out of it, and then eventually got my
Yeah.
son out of it.
So when else have you experienced what you would consider some of the best years of your life as it relates to people outside of your own family?
I had really good experiences for a brief period of time at each of my jobs. So the second to last job that I had before I owned my own company was, there was about a year and a half. We were without a VP in my department for a very long time, and I had worked for a VP at my prior company who I adore. I adore her to this day. She's one of my favorite people. She's a fantastic mentor, like the rockest of rock that I could always depend on. So I went to my HR department and I said, if you're going to go look for a VP, which I think we should do, look for someone just like this person. So she went out to talk to this old mentor of mine to find out what she was like and what her thought process was. And our HR department convinced her to come and be our VP. So I got to work for her again. And it was amazing and lovely. And she was so supportive. The people who she then hired to fill out our department were just like us. They were hard workers and smart and collaborative and really just wanted to do the right thing instead of doing the corporate thing. So that was a really good period of time for me. And then I got cancer and that sucked. But before that, it was really a beautiful time for me.
The thing that makes life the best is the people. So I came across a quote that has stuck with me, and that is that you become the people you surround yourself with. And when that first came across my radar screen, I was like, well, shit, who's in my life right now? And when I'm scrolling through my life, there were a lot of really great, amazing people in my life, but also there were some people in my life who were not good for me. And it really made me be more intentional about who I was spending my time with. And I would love to get to a place in my life right now where I can add more people into my circle that uplift me, that I uplift them, that we have similar interests, can communicate on the same wavelength. I would love to build more people like that because looking backwards, the best times in my life involved other people. I'm at a very peaceful time in my life right now. I don't have a lot of people, but I have a lot of peace and a lot of groundedness. But I also want to have a future of really enjoying other people and learning from them and hearing their different perspectives. And just when you have new people in your world, the whole world opens up to you because you get to see life through their eyes in a way that you never had before. So I am eager to do that, and I have started to try to get out into the community a little bit more. I've been getting involved a little bit in some of the special education committees for the school district and just trying to meet some new people because having the right people in my life makes a huge difference to my mood, to my outlook, to my energy, to my motivation. I want to add some new people into my circle.
I've been very lucky here in Canada, and I don't know whether it's my own growth or circumstances, but two really good things have happened. One, well, the COVID lockdown wasn't a good thing in general, but we were so desperate to get out of the house. People on our block would just pour out onto the streets on Friday afternoons, Friday nights. And I found a group of 8 families who have kids around the same age and have the same interests. And so we just every single week for probably 2 or 3 years, we would just get together and the kids would play at a distance and the parents would sit 6 feet apart and just talk with one another. And it was an amazing bonding experience. And I think without COVID, it probably wouldn't have been as intense as it was in creating these amazing bonds, because 2 years in, I knew these people really well, and I knew I could count on them, and I knew I could ask them to do whatever needed to be done in my family, if I needed someone to take care of my son, whatever. But I'd never been inside their houses. And it was just such a weird juxtaposition. So now it's much better. Our kids are older and we're much busier, so we don't do the typical Friday afternoons anymore, but we know we still have this core group of people that we can count on. The other great thing that happened was my son, despite all of my best efforts, he's a sport. He's an athlete. So he likes playing baseball in the summer and hockey in the winter, ice hockey in the winter. He's a goalie, and he largely plays with a lot of the same families. And even this core group of friends I have, we interact with them depending on the year and the sport. We interact with them sometimes. So having sort of the same kids and the same parents at all of these sporting events, and I don't miss any of them, it really is a great way to bond. I mean, it's sitting for 2.5 hours watching a baseball game. There's nothing to do but bond with the families. And the coaches that we've had have been absolutely amazing. So they do chunks of 2 years, so birth year, blah, 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 and then the next year next to it. So a lot of the coaches and families, we see them every other year. And so it's really fun to sort of go back and forth between those two. But the relationships are still there. It's interesting about some of the coaches that I don't know them personally very well, but I've known them for so long that it feels like a solid friendship. And then there's the whole parents of my son's school friends, a whole other group of people who I rely on.
I never wanted to know any of the parents of my kids' friends.
Never?
Not ever, not never, but rarely. Rarely. I preferred to find my own people. And I just always felt judged to it. I always felt so judged.
Really?
Yeah. If my kid is going to go into their kid's house and be like authentically themselves because they're with their best friend, and if the authentically themselves also includes maybe some things that are not always appropriate, maybe they would swear, or maybe that, like, I just didn't know. I didn't know what my kids were doing. I mean, I have really good kids. My kids are good kids, but I didn't know what they were going to be doing in someone else's house. And so I kind of like felt like I don't, too much. So when the kids were little, a teacher told me one time, don't judge me for the things that your kid comes home and tells you about me. and I won't judge you for the things that your kid comes to school and tells me about you. I was like, okay, point
Nice.
taken. So I felt that way constantly with my kids' friends. Like, I don't know what you see. Plus, I never liked my friends' parents because I felt judged by them as well. So I guess I had some judgment issues.
So when we were
Oh,
kids, we were the best behaved kids. I can't imagine another parent, a parent of our friends, judging us. We were so good. We were so behaved. We were so in line.
except when we
Were you
weren't.
were you not? Oh,
What?
okay. Okay.
Okay.
I think both of us had a good friend whose parents didn't like them being our friend because we were too wild.
We were
But
wild.
I think it says something about the conservatism of those parents, not anything about us. But we both had that one
Yeah.
friend whose parents were, "Hmm, don't know if you should be
Yeah.
hanging out with Michelle and Kimberly."
Yeah. That we're the bad influence.
But it's so not
I mean,
true.
and they
It's
weren't
not
wrong.
true.
They weren't. No,
Really?
it was true. Oh,
How
yeah.
so?
Oh,
Oh,
oh my
okay.
God.
I'm revising my own memories here. Yes. Okay. So what do you think was you were being judged for justifiably?
Well, we were allowed to stay out later. Were given more freedom as to how far we could leave this from the town in our cars. You know, we just were given a lot more freedom. And I liked people and I liked the hanging out with people and I loved going to parties. And I was particularly drawn to parties that had alcohol at them.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So that was older years.
Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so high school, older high school. And I wasn't really a huge drinker in high school because I just was too busy. But definitely all of those things were driven by me and not by my friend.
Interesting.
It is what it is. It was still one of the best years of my life,
Well, yes. Yes.
despite the fact that I was the bad
So
influence.
before that, earlier than that, and with other friends' parents, did you feel judged before you were the partier?
Girl, I didn't have friends.
Okay, well, that's hard to judge you then.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I didn't have friends. I didn't have friends until those last 2 years of high school. All the other years, I was just really completely a loner. I had one friend in middle school, and we really enjoyed each other's company. And she had to leave school because she became anorexic and had to go to treatment. And then we lost touch because after that, she went to a different high school. So that was the only other person I ever considered a friend of mine. And it was for maybe like a year and a half in middle school. Besides that, no, no friends at all.
When did you start hanging out with the drama music group?
Junior year,
Okay, okay, so that was
junior in
coincident
high
with
school.
that. You didn't take choir before that?
Oh, no, it hadn't occurred to me.
Oh,
We went to high school. A bunch of people that I knew from 6th grade or from 5th grade, but I hadn't gone to school with, we met up at the high school again because they had gone to different middle schools. So we all met up at the high school again, and they were all involved in this music, drama and musical theater and everything. And I was just sort of the hanger on. And that's kind of how I got into those things because that's what that was person that was my friend is going to go do. And so I'm going to go do that too. And then turned out to totally be my thing.
so my vice was boys. I don't remember drinking a lot at parties. It wasn't that interesting to me, but I really liked boys. And I think if anything, my friends' parents were judging me because of that. But I wasn't pushing them into doing anything. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Boys and alcohol. So I want to explore. Yes, I think one of the best contributors to a happy life is who you surround yourself with and when you have good people around you. You're very happy right now. I see it in you. What are the characteristics of your life right now that make you happier now than you've been in the past as an adult?
Right now, I don't have any people in my immediate sphere of influence that are toxic or that drag me down or that try to hold me back. I just don't have those people in my life right now. So it's not always only who you do have in your life, but sometimes who you don't have in your life. Um, and I did get a divorce a few years ago, and that has made a huge difference. That's the person that came to my mind when I heard the quote of you become who you surround yourself with. And I didn't like that energy. My partner had a very negative energy. And so it was time. to separate myself from that. And after a few years of healing from the toxicity of that environment, I also spent that time cultivating my own environment that was peaceful and that I get to choose what I want to do and no one's judging me. And I get to say what I want to say and no one's telling me that I'm stupid or that I'm wrong, mostly wrong. Like everything I believed, everything I thought, everything I said was always just wrong. It was just wrong, 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 wrong. So now that I don't have that in my daily life, the people I do have in my life give me just space to breathe. And I give them space to breathe. And if they want to do things that I wouldn't necessarily do for myself, that's good. That's good on you. You go do that. That's a you thing. And they're fine with it. I'm fine with it. So that's the environment that I have now.
A couple years ago, you bought a big old home to drive behind a truck, and you threw in your daughter and you threw in your youngest son, and you took a year and traveled around the country. Was that a happy time for you, or was that a healing time for you, or both?
Yes, it was both. It was a healing time and it was a happy time. It was amazing to just to be in a different location every few days for like the better part of 10 months meant that the only environment that I was really settled in was the environment I was bringing. Like
Hmm.
within that little box of an RV, that was the only environment that was stable, like physically stable, because everything else changed every couple of days. And I really just got to explore who I wanted to be out in the wild, how I wanted to interact with people, what kinds of things interested me, what kinds of things did I want to spend my time doing, what experiences was I attracted to. I really got to just learn who I was and what I enjoyed. And now that I also love myself, then the people that I have around me have probably less of an effect on my mood than they once did. So
I
that's a big, big part of it. That's a big, big part of it is learning to love myself was monumental in moving me toward a life where not every single day is happy,
no.
but these are some of the best years of my life right now in that I have a peace, I have a contentment, I have a groundedness that I think I've never experienced before in my life. And you're right, a lot of that came because I cultivated time with myself.
So that's a great way to put it. You cultivated time with yourself, which could be done in multiple ways.
Hmm.
When I was a little bit younger, I loved to travel. I traveled for work, so I got to take trips in the most amazing places. So all over the US, I got to go to Cairo, I got to go to Singapore, I got to go to Tokyo and Osaka. And I loved that period of time. And it could be because it was something new, but I feel like the period of time that I spent traveling to these amazing places was a very happy time for me because of the travel.
Did your travels give you an opportunity to learn who you were?
Yes, and I think yes, I think that's a big part of it. And I think it's a reflection of who other people are. So having the perspective of different cultures and different ways of looking at the world and different ways of eating and different ways of communicating with one another. Of course, I didn't get too deep into these communities because I was only there for a brief period of time, but I would love to go to museums in local places and I would love to eat at local restaurants. And that really helped me to frame a different view of the world and broaden my perspective a lot. And I think that helped me to grow as a person.
If I'm going to take a 10,000-foot view of the my life and the times that were happy in it, I would say that the happiest times in my life were times when I had the right people around me who allowed me to be my best self. And the times when now I have fewer people around me, but the people I do have around me also are allowing me to be my best self and giving me space to grow and to figure out who I am. And this is the time of life when a lot of my friends are having to face that question, who am I? Because we're all empty nesting. And I happen to have another little guy behind me, but it's a completely different parenting experience than with my oldest three. But I don't I don't have this need to empty nest, and I'm not. I did the work already of who the hell am I? Apart from being a spouse or being a mom or being a worker, an employee, apart from those roles, who the hell am I? I had a really good opportunity to do that work.
And
But
you
I think a lot of people are probably faced with that question right now, and it can be really terrifying, but it can also be incredibly liberating because you can start to shed some of the parts of you that have never really worked, but you've hung on to them anyway. And just once you can see it and be like, I just don't need that anymore, it's incredibly liberating.
it's interesting a lot of your friends are taking this journey of who am I outside of those roles that I've taken on. And I'm very privileged and honored to be able to go through that journey right now, even though I have a lot of parenting left to do. So I'm not going to give that up. I'm not going to not be there for my son. Most of my time is spent on my son, frankly. I'm not going to give that up, but I also recognize that when he leaves, I'm still going to be a whole person with interests and activities. And so to start cultivating those now is not a mistake.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I think most of us waited too long,
We
honestly.
don't
I
know
think I
though.
think many of us wait too long to, well, we fall so headlong into either family or career, and that becomes all consuming that we sometimes forget that there's also just me, and we're not really intentional about figuring out who we are apart from the roles that we play in our lives. um and I think that we could do that at any age, at any stage of life, and probably should be doing it at all stages of life, asking the question, who am I, what do I like, what feeds me, and what am I contributing to the world?
We're so busy, we don't have to ask that question. It's just a matter of recognizing that we have the luxury to do that, even if we're busy as parents and employees and kids of older parents. There's one more topic I want to put on the table. So that's you and me. So you are like by far one of my favorite people on the whole planet right now. My kids and you. That's the
Yeah.
inner circle, right? There was a time after high school, during college, that we were not close, and in most of our adult lives, when we're busy with being employees and being parents and just the lives that we lived, we didn't have a lot of time to think about cultivating this relationship. I've always loved you and cherished you, and you've been my sister, my big sister. But it's been a couple years, like 3 or 4 years, that you and I have started speaking. We started speaking weekly, and now for a couple years now, at least 3 years, we've been talking every single day, multiple times a day. And
Yeah.
for me, that is contributing significantly to the joy and happiness in my life and the stability.
Thank you for putting that on the table, because you're 1,000% right. My life would be vastly different in not a good way if you weren't in it.
I'm
I
honored.
wake up like you're the person that I want to tell everything to the minute something happens. And the really frustrating thing is sometimes the thing happens and you're there for it, like
We
via
still text
FaceTime,
about
and
it.
then like I want to tell you about it, but you were there. So you like
We always talk about it, though. Even so, we talk about it.
yeah, we still do. Yeah, still do talk about it.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
but
that is the
it's amazing to have.
one of the great things about this podcast is to spend more time with you and share this amazing relationship that we have with people.
I'm very grateful for you.
Thank you. You too. Coming soon on Super Random Things with those sisters. Did you watch the movie Ladies First?
I did watch that.
I love that we're opening a dialogue about this, for sure. And I think for what it aimed to accomplish, it was really well done. But I feel like there's a whole layer that was absolutely missing. So here's my overall take. And just for listeners, we're going to be giving lots and lots of spoilers about this. So go watch the movie and then come back and engage in this dialogue. The movie was, in my opinion, an expose of what it would look like in a world where women were the patriarchs and men were oppressed by female patriarchs. But it wasn't reflective in any way of what a real world matriarchy would be. So for what it was, which was putting women in the position of patriarchy, it was pretty well done.
That's interesting that you say that your take is that it was putting women in the position of patriarchy, because what I saw was it was trying to put men in the position of subservience, of what women deal with. And that the clearest way to do that was to flip the roles. I never really quite believed it. I didn't believe the women. When the women were being crass and just misogynistic, or I don't know what you'd call it in that world, feminogynistic or something. I didn't believe it. Like the women couldn't pull it off.
Be-
And I don't just mean the actors. I mean, women couldn't pull off being that big of dicks.
because
They just couldn't.
women in power do not behave like that in large part. They don't. So it was unbelievable. I also found
Yeah.
a little unbelievable this idea that when the men became the homemakers and they were welcoming the adult children home, etc., they would be overly emotional, overly almost to a caricature of what they think women
Yeah.
are, of mothers who are just fawning over their sons. The dads were fawning over their sons in a way that wasn't realistic for moms. It was such a caricature that I felt that was almost insulting, like they were making a joke out of how moms love their adult children.
When the women were the men, the way they were acting felt a little bit over the top for me for 2026. Like in 1980, 1,000%, those are the men that I encountered in the workplace. In 2026, I get they had to do that in order to make their point, but it felt a little bit, it felt a little over the top. I'm trying to think through who would be watching this movie and taking anything away from it.
You're right. Because they did this weird twist at the end to turn it into a rom-com, which was the dumbest decision ever, because they did that, probably wanting the female audience, I think men are going to shy away from this movie. Anything that says ladies first, probably the men who need to see the movie are not going to be the ones who go and rush to the theater to see this movie.
Which means that they probably made the movie for women, hoping that we would feel vindication or something, that seeing the ridiculousness would make us feel like, yes, that's exactly right, that's exactly what we go through, blah blah blah. And mostly I just rolled my eyes at most of it, and I was like, are we doing another like Freaky Friday movie where we're just flip-flopping everything and seeing what happens?
Yes,
And
that's exactly what it was. It was a
I th-
Freaky Friday for genders. Kiwi says if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much.
thank you.